So I have found myself standing amidst a lot of crop farms in the country. Talk of rice, talk of maize, cassava, plantains and what have you. But today I am coming to you straight from a wheat farm. It's unprecedented. This is my first time standing in a wheat farm in Ghana. And because on today on the food chain, we are looking at the Ghana Wheat Initiative, where the country has been able to grow its first wheat, and it's under the auspices of the Crops Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. But before we take a look or delve deeper into today's conversation, here is a report on how wheat importation in Ghana is affecting local traders and even the consumers. My name is Emmanuel Bright Kweku. Stay with us. Along the busy stretch of the Bomso traffic light on the Kumasi-Accra highway, hawkers chase after moving vehicles to sell their wares. Conspicuous among the variety of items sold on these streets is bread, a local staple food enjoyed by many households in Ghana. Bread is made from a dough of flour and water, usually by baking. Eja has been in the bread-making business for over 3 decades now, a trade he inherited from his mother, but the business has dwindled in the last 3 years.
The market now, my market now is slow. First year a day is 15, and now 12 bags. 12 bags flour.
Flour, a major component of the bread dough, is now an expensive commodity. Produced from wheat, the cost of flour has for the past 3 years seen an upward trend.
Cross, and I'm going to Ghana. This year 765. And I will have credit no Fenacuna and the pound of 1,000 Fenacuna. And here 730. And I will fair choice and a royal good and 720. Its attributable cause, the Russian-Ukraine war. In 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, demand for wheat flour on the local markets increased. The two countries, who are few of the largest wheat producers, ceased exportation of the grain following the cessation of the Black Sea grain deal. This resulted in cascading effects on the prices of the commodity along the wheat value chain globally. Kojo Owusu, a flour vendor at the Asafo market in Kumasi, began his flour vending shop 2 years before the war. We were not in Yanya Manibi, no wheat in even feel her number. The Cacre Bina Binano, or the ya, at the Vetina Unavi. The market are prices and of course. The Cacre Bina Bino more Mutimidibi ban, or bar no our tomb, or bar no our tomb. Conan they are bound to me control price and or not quite the affairs will be drawn. You know, your pen or dead. No, dear, of course, I've never had. Robert Bano is Nippon Bones is an Ahodo be about the open into way bino, as a market crowd by and whom I go arm. The night hard and of course, that time
The impact of the war saw some local bakeries laying off staff to stay in business.
Some no, now we never be to say and they never know until now. Uniska, Untimco, some of Aquay, Okoji, Oboyana, they are commanding run into some religion. Now Uniska, and maybe be a Jumay, a call for. A moment to pound on Libino, and be production a call for more workers, a big coffee.
Ghana heavily relies on imported wheat to feed its citizens and domestic poultry. The country imports nearly $300 million of the grain every year. According to the Observatory of the Economic Complexity Report, Ghana imports wheat primarily from Canada, Russia, Lithuania, France, and Ukraine annually. Director of the Crops Research Institute under the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Professor Maxwell Darko-Asante, highlights the impacts of these importations.
Wheat is known mainly as a temperate crop. So we have not been growing wheat in Ghana. As we saw during the Russia-Ukraine war, it is not safe to just say that some country can produce something and ship to you. You may even have money, but there will be no wheat to buy. We spend a lot of money to import this wheat, over $100 million every year to import wheat. And you know the challenge we have with foreign exchange. So if you continue to use a lot of foreign exchange to import any commodity, what you are doing is that you are putting pressure on your cedi. And you know that in Ghana, when the cedi depreciates, every other thing is affected.
Food scientists explored the combination and replacement of wheat flour with other local crops like rice, potatoes, and others to reduce its over-reliance.
Our scientists have gone ahead to use other flour, rice flour, cassava flour, almost all the crops, they have flour that we can use for our products. But they always have to combine it with some percentage of wheat. Yeah. So the wheat, when it comes to flour, it has its own place, which you cannot dislodge easily.
The wheat import market continues to grow rapidly for Ghana, with a population growth of over 30 million people, coupled with fast urbanization. Local actors in the wheat value chain are anticipating the local cultivation of the grain to ease the burden.
Because you will go Ghana high, let's say, be trying to hear the Amia Bia, Jumada Cabebo. Because no more crab and then matter be our prices in the cost. For you, I said dollar cost and also cost. The never Ghana ya there. Nakabebo, my Jumana,
Ah, Cabebo, 7 months, Samana Kofo. Cause Uza Ghana, how much you be almost $1. There be a cosra, a salmon so in a Ghana, and near Mom Dean, Uncle February Butcher labor. Into more a cosrono. Na dollar ne kosoro ne samno so boye de e koso ndike dua bi wa ha ka be boama e bo na kofoma mai.
Thankfully, their wishes could be seen the light of day through the Ghana Wheat Initiative aimed at growing wheat locally. And so you are still watching The Food Chain with me, Emmanuel Bright Kweku, here on the Joy News channel, and I am excited to actually have this particular interaction, and that's because Ghana has been able to grow its own wheat. I'm talking about we getting wheat germinate out of our very own soil here in the country. And leading the research here at the Crops Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research is Dr. Felix Frimpong. He has been doing this with the Arima Farms, and they are the private partners of this particular project. And we are here to talk about the Ghana Wheat Initiative. What are the plans forward? How did we come about this whole project? And probably what will be the support or going forward, what they will need to scale up. And so, Doc, you are welcome to The Food Chain.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, so the Ghana Wheat Initiative is an initiative of the CSIR Cross Research Institute together with our main private partner lead, Arima Farms. And we started somewhere in 2023. And I must say that the whole initiative was hastened by the fact that we had the Russian-Ukraine war. Okay. And that is where the whole idea or thought began. Now, formally, there has been a proof of concept that indeed wheat can be grown in Ghana by one Dr. Charles Ntiamoa. The video is on YouTube. So they brought in materials or wheat germplasm from Arizona State University and grew a number of them, getting to about thousands or whatever, and grew it in Afram Plains Now, the interesting part is that he invited scientists from here at the time, the then director, Professor Hans.
What year was this?
This was in 2011.
2011. Okay.
2011. Professor Hans Edudapa, and also our current director, Professor Maxwell Dakum Asante, to go and indeed validate what he has done on the field. And so they went all the way to Afram Plains and witnessed what the man has done. And indeed, they were able to see wheat that has been filled, the grains with the spice and everything. Now, what was comparable or very interesting was the fact that the materials he brought from Arizona performed similar to as they were doing in Arizona in the temperate crop, in the temperate season. As you know, wheat is a temperate crop. And so if you Google right now, Google will tell you that wheat, now they've changed the story. They will say that wheat is not well suited in Ghana. Before, they will say wheat does not grow in Ghana. We import close to about $300 million annually. In fact, I want to even challenge these numbers because I believe that it is even more than that. Because this is only for the flour industry, what we import and mill, and that is what they capture. And that is huge on the economy, such as small as Ghana. And therefore, when there was a ban and the people could not find the raw material to process, we thought it wise that, okay, if there has been a proof of concept in the past, can we then begin to grow wheat in Ghana? And we spoke to our international partners. Here we are talking about the International Institute for Wheat and Maize Improvement Program, CIMIT, and then also institutions in Kenya, in neighboring countries like Nigeria. We call an institution, we call it LCRI.
Okay.
LCRI is mandated to produce wheat in Nigeria. And they have been growing wheat for more than 100 years. Now, you ask yourself, Ghana is 68 years now. We are 68 years. But we've never thought of growing wheat. Meanwhile, our neighbors in Nigeria, they are doing it. So we took germplasm from them and then tried to see that if they will be adapted in our environment, if they will be able to perform with all our heat and high temperatures and drought and everything. Now, the interesting bit or the scientific background is that the materials we carefully selected from these countries, from Kenya, from Nigeria, from Mexico, from US, from Germany. I went to all these areas, and from India, from our partners. Arima Farms gave us one germplasm from India. And these materials were the heat-tolerant, drought-tolerant materials. And they were also biofortified materials. They are materials that have high protein in them, because we are also thinking about issues of malnutrition, this kwashiorkor that we have in our system. And they are also iron and zinc biofortified. But now the challenge is whether they will be able to withstand the high temperature. You know, in Ghana, in daytime, sometimes you could record as high as 50 degrees Celsius. That is a burning furnace.
Wow.
Yes. So we put these materials into trial. We started in 2023. The first thing we did was to grow the materials across our 3 seasons. I'm talking about the major season, the rainy season, which starts from March now up to somewhere June, July. And then you go to the minor season, the September, okay? You take advantage of the September rains and then you grow your plants. And then the off season, this is somewhere from November, December, January. Okay. That's the off season where you have no rain. So we grew wheat in these 3 seasons. And we realized that the wheat we grew in the off season was doing so well. And the reason was that, you know, in the off season, we have what we call Harmattan. And during the Harmattan, we have cold night temperatures. Okay, we have cold night temperatures. So the wheat utilizes the cold night temperatures to fill. Okay, and that gave us the spark. That enlightened us to realize that, okay, indeed, if we grow wheat under irrigation and at the cold night temperatures during the Harmattan period, from 15th of November, if you plant, you are able to get very good yield. So far, averagely, we have about 2 to 4.5 tons per hectare for the materials we have. Okay. In our bosom or with our gene bank right now, we have about 326 accessions. Okay. Just within 1.5 years, we've been able to, and they have all the characteristics that I talked about: heat tolerant, drought tolerant, iron, zinc, biofortified, protein biofortified.
And there are
326 of them. Now we've been able to, if you like, profile the top 20 performers. Okay. Top 20. Okay, the highest one is given about 4.5 tons per hectare. And this is material coming from Summit all the way in Kenya.
With these materials that you have brought, you said 20 of them did very well. Was it in the cold and night season? I think
exactly.
Was it during that peak that you had a lot of?
Exactly. So our best time for high yield is within the Harmattan period.
Okay.
That's what. But
that's this season now, or I think the rains are.
Yes. So now the rains are setting. Yeah. Now we are in March. Yeah. Okay. So right now we have materials on the field. Yeah. We grew them on the 16th of December. Okay. But we've realized that the window for the off season is 15th November to 15th December. That is where you can take advantage of the cold night temperatures. So by January, the wheat is already at the vegetative stage, and then they go into bolting and fill, and they take advantage of the cold night temperatures. Okay. Now, in the major and minor season, so the materials that we brought in, the 326, did not give us economic yield. But that doesn't mean we should write it off. It is possible if through research we can bring in materials that are rain-fed, that are suitable to our rainfall environment, and be able to give us economic yield. So our target here was economic yield, because the idea is that when you are able to break in, that is where the farmer will be interested to go into large-scale production. So you don't want to have materials that do not give you economic yield. And economic yield here is anything from 2 tons per hectare. Yeah.
Okay. So somebody would ask, what has really changed? Because we know women's growing wheat until a researcher from Arizona brought some germplasms to the country somewhere around 2011. What really has changed that now we are able to grow the wheat? Is it an ecology, climate impact or something?
Okay, so what really has changed is the science. Okay. So I told you that these materials are heat tolerant materials. So the science has really made it possible for we to have wheat growing in Ghana. In the background of these materials is a special gene, okay, that is able, we call it heat shock proteins, okay, that is able to help it. Now, you will see that these materials, though we are able to achieve economic yield, where they are coming from in the temperate environment, they are producing as high as 15 to 22 tons per hectare, the same material. What is happening is that because it's so prolific and high yielding, it uses parts of the photosynthesis that it normally would have channeled to growth and development into what we call transpirational cooling, okay, by upregulating these heat shock proteins, okay. Let me not go too much into the science. So that is what is happening. And by that, it's able to give us the economic yield that we have. Okay. So basically, that is the science.
Okay. Now, still on the climate bit, I wanted to know, is there any way climate change might affect the wheat that we've grown so far? Because I think you were saying you grew somewhere 16 December, and with the weather changing, I know normally we shouldn't expect rains now, and given the conditions of the wheat growing in the cold and night period, can it affect it? Definitely, my brother. So climate change is doing a lot, you know. And one thing that easily comes to mind is that, you know, in Ghana, we used to have very long rainfall periods. So it rains cats and dogs. Okay. It rains very heavy and then it stops at somewhere August. Okay, that is where the local people will say fupe. Okay, and then in June, July, it will be drizzling. You know, in June, July. But these days, you will see that all these patterns have changed. Okay. Last year, for instance, we had very prolonged drought, if you remember. Yeah. We had very prolonged drought. Affected some farmers.
Yes. So climate change is really affecting our agriculture pattern. And that is why it is important to also think out of the box and bring innovative ideas such as this, where even though you are not having enough water, you could do irrigated wheat, okay? And also, you know, where we are, we tend to have a lot of lowland rice, okay? The advantage for this system or the irrigated wheat is that the lowland rice normally is in the major or the minor season, okay? Now, in the off season, where you have no rains, you could introduce the wheat into these inland valleys and then the irrigated ecologies, the lowland ecologies, okay? And you will not be watering because those places are marshy, okay? They have some amount of moisture, okay? Because wheat, it doesn't need so much water. Wheat, the entire crop duration, it needs only 400 millimeters of water and it's good to go. That is the advantage with the wheat. Okay. So climate change is very, very worrying. But there are science can help us in terms of what we call these early warning systems. These climate digital platforms can help us to tell us when it's going to rain, when it will not rain, when you are supposed to do the planting and everything.
Touching on that, what will be the economic benefits? I know wheat, Wheat is something that is crucial to us because we as a people, personally, I like bread a lot. And wheat is the major component of the bread. How is this going to transform or let's say help reduce the prices of the wheat that we have on the market that we are using for the flour and the others? How is it going to help with it?
Yeah, so the economic aspect is a real boom. It's a real boom because wheat is a commercial crop, okay? So the aspect of job creation is also very significant in all this, okay? You talked about the bread. So look at the bread industry. If we have local wheat and it's affordable, so many people can venture into bread making, you know. Also, because it's a commercial crop, you need to establish commercial farms, large-scale farms, okay? We are not talking about 2 hectares, beyond 2 hectares. Of course, as smallholder farmers, we are encouraging them to also go into wheat production. But once you are going into the commercial production, you need people to work on the farms, okay, from planting to harvest. And that is job creation for many people, agricultural foods. And once you are producing local wheat, you will not be going into the international market to import. And straight away, that affects your city, okay? So if we are able to do away with this about $300 million, imagine straight away that is money for the government to channel it into other areas like our road infrastructure, health, and what have you. Now, one great bit that I really want to also focus on is the animal feed, poultry feed. You know, wheat is part of the formulation. It's a strong ingredient in there. And therefore, if we can have local wheat, you can imagine what the ripple effect to our poultry industry.
So tell us about the difference, or what are the advantages of yours, how maybe the taste, the sweetness and all of that, how is it different from yours?
Well, so in terms of the difference, there's no difference. Okay. The only difference is that this is grown and bred in Ghana.
So it's literally the same.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. I must be frank with you. There's no difference at all. The only difference is that you will see wheat for yourself.
Being grown in Ghana.
That's the only difference.
We are hoping that apples will be grown in Ghana.
Yes, this is a Ghanaian made. This is Ghanaian made wheat. So that's the only difference. And therefore, we shouldn't be worried in terms of, let's say, people say it's a GMO or it has some elements that will not be good for our health. Or this is exactly the same thing. In fact, I told you, I went to all those areas. I was in Germany, I was in the US, I went to Australia, and India also came, Kenya, I went to Nigeria, and we brought all the yes, we carefully selected all these germplasm. So it's the same.
And then so far, if I get you, Kenya is the one that gave you a lot of...
Exactly. The one coming from Summit, Kenya, is our top variety.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's look at it's on the field. It's not out on the market yet. What is the process now from here on the field to get into a market? What are you going to do?
Yeah, so in Ghana, there are protocols that you have to follow, which we call the National Varietal Release Registration process. Okay, so that is the part we are left with. Our estimate is that within a year or two, we should be able to be done with those protocols. So what we are left with is that we need to, first of all, apply to Ministry of Food and Agriculture.
And how is that going? Have you applied?
We haven't applied. So we need to put a number of data together. So how they are performing, the sensory aspect you asked me, it has to be part. We need to do what we call molecular diversity aspect, which is ongoing at the moment. And then we also have to give it to farmers, which we call on-farm, to grow in their farm and then tell us the performance, the yield. That data will also have to be in there. So, and then we also have to do what we call proximate analysis. We have the proximate from the international partners, but we need to do it.
The local one.
Yes, exactly. So we have to dot all these I's and then cross the T's. Once we are done with that, we submit the application. Then the National Varietal Release Committee, whose chairman, by the way, came and assured us that once we submit, they will hasten the process. Dr. Solomon Janansa, with the Crop Services Directorate of MUFA. We are thankful for you, sir. So once we submit that, then they will come for inspection. We will grow the wheat as we have done, and then they will come for inspection.
So, Doc, you have grown the wheat here. What plans do you have? What would you want, let's say, government or even private agencies? We have Arima farms already on board, but what would you want them to do in terms of scaling up to other parts of the country?
If you look at the overall vision, I think that it will really require that we establish some kind of a national wheat board. Okay. Because, you know, wheat, when we globally, if you talk about wheat, rice does not even come near. Yes, globally. The trade globally is about $800 million. Wheat trade alone. So rice does not even come in when it is below. Even maize, they are all below. Wheat is the priority, is the topmost. Okay. It's just that we in Ghana, we do not know much of it because we've not been growing it. So we need the strategy we did with cocoa, where we have cocoa board. Okay. So we need a wheat board. Okay. That will prioritize wheat and set the agenda for wheat. Okay. We need a policy for wheat. All the commodities, they have policies. We can talk of the National Rice Development Strategy. Yeah. I think it's from, it's a draft, the phase 2, it's a draft, it's yet to be released. But all the commodities, all the crops, they have a policy which shows the direction, what we should do in the short term, and then the medium term, and then the long term. So it's a huge venture. And that is what the vision, I think that if government really takes it up, it will really help this nation.
Okay. All right. So I think that there's a lot of economic benefits from wheat generally, even though we have the cocoa, the cashew, and the other crops. But once we get the wheat on board, as you rightly mentioned, a board for the wheat commodity, then definitely we should be raking in more profits on this particular crop as well. So, Doc, thank you very much for joining us here on the Food Chain on the Joy News channel. I'm just hoping that this would actually catch the attention and then gain a lot of public conversations on how to actually scale up this on our farms. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Iman.
Thank you very much. And so I have been speaking with Dr. Felix Frimpong. He is one of the leads for this Ghana Wheat Initiative that is happening here at the Crops Research Institute and the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. And we have been having a conversation on how, for the very first time in Ghana, we are growing wheat and ways to improve on it, scale it, commercialize it, so that our farmers on the field can get it and boost local economy and also create jobs, especially for the youth. And so you have been watching the Food Chain with me, Emmanuel Bright Kweku. See you same time next week for another exciting episode.